Alright, hello everybody. Today we are going to make this soap dish tray. This is from Toby, and here's the drawing. We're going to go from this 2D drawing to the 3D model. Now, I'm using FreeCAD, and one thing is that this is the FreeCAD link branch. This is made by Real Thunder, and I recommend this version. It's easier in some ways, and it's also harder in some other ways. But I think it has some really powerful tools, and that's why I personally use it and recommend it. So, without further ado, here's our model, and let's close this, and let's get started on a new one. My overall plan here is we have essentially just a rectangle shape here with some fillets on it. And then if we zoom in our cross section or a side view, we have this 2mm thickness wall and then 4mm here. But we just have that general shape. So I'm just going to sketch something like this, and I am going to make a sweep along a profile that goes around the perimeter here. Now, since we have some center lines here and here, I'm going to make my origin right in the middle of that part. So I'm going to move this off to the side, create my first sketch. I'll say the top plane for this one. And here I can just make a centered rectangle. I click on dimension. This needs to be 64. This needs to be 100. And I will cancel out of that by hitting right click. Now I can do a fillet tool. I want a corner preserving fillet. So I'll click on these two lines, click on these two lines, click on these two lines, and these two lines. And you can see, because I did the corner preserving fillet, it still remembers those dimensions. Otherwise it would remove those because those corners would be gone. Now obviously these fillets are not in the same spot, so I will click on all four of those, click E for equal, and then I will click radius, and that needs to be 20 because we are sketching the outer profile. So I can OK that, and I will create a new sketch. This time I want the right plane, also known as the YZ plane. And something I can do here is I can create external geometry, and I'm going to pick this line right here. That way, if something did change in the future, 64 divided by 2, rather than putting that dimension in from here to here, I can just link it to that top sketch. So I have that, and I want the multi-line tool. I want vertical. I'm looking at my readout, it's around 25. I want a small horizontal line. I want another vertical line, a small horizontal line again, and then I want this to go down vertically, and I want it to be on that axis, and then one more here to close it all out. And we try to move stuff around just to make sure it is in fact constrained. I can't move this one, so that one's in place. This one can be moved. So now I will click on constrain distance. So we know this needs to be 25mm tall. We know that from here to here should be 2, or you could just click on the line 2. And here this needs to be 10, and this point and this line, and I'll make that 4. Or I could have just clicked on this bottom line. But our sketch has now become fully constrained. The color changes, depends on your theme, but mine's black. And it looks like I am good to close that out. And now what I'm going to do is I can pick on these two and do an additive pipe, but just to show it a little better, I'm going to hit additive pipe and then I'll pick everything. So select feature, I'm going to click on this because it asks for the profile first. So the profile is sketch 1. You can see right here it just selected the whole sketch. Path, we want this sketch, which is right there. And now we get our preview. I can OK that. So obviously we're missing our bottom here. So I want this first sketch, this bottom sketch, and actually I'm going to hit F2 and say bottom outline. And on this one I will say side profile, just so I can select those a little easier. So I want this, click on that if it's shown. And I really like this workflow, is I can just pick on this profile, I can click pad, type in whatever my dimension is, and be done with it. So now I need some radii. So in the drawing we are given radius of 12 on the outside, and then -4 would be 8. So I'm going to do that one first, but we don't actually have to do the math. And a little tip in here, so I'm trying to grab this inside line and it's a little tough. You can zoom in, but something I find helpful is this right here, selection on top. So if you click on anything, it makes the whole body semi-transparent. So I can click on that and I'll just click on these edges, and everything's easier to click when it's in kind of this wireframe mode. So fillet, 12 minus 4, it's just 8, and it automatically propagates to all of those connected edges because those are all tangent to each other. So we'll OK that, and then we will make another 12, enter, OK. And now if I type VC for a cross section and say I want to do clipping through X, I can see what our side profile looks like. And I would say that looks pretty much like what the drawing looks like. So I think I'm happy with that. So I'll close out of there. And I think next up I want to add this central rib. So I'm going to look from basically the center line, because it is right on the center, which is nice. And I'm going to look on the right view, and I'm just going to make this kind of shape right here. Except since this is symmetric about the middle, I don't need to worry about half of it. I can mirror it later. So what I'm going to do is create a sketch, YZ plane. Similar to what we did before, I'm going to project some geometry. So I will pick here and here. And if you scroll down in your task view here, so these are blue. So by default, it's not super obvious, but if you toggle construction geometry, these become defining. They still show up as blue, which I don't really like, but you can see that they do change color. So you could probably go into your settings and see that, okay, when it's kind of this darker color, it is construction. When it's this lighter color, it's defining. And a really easy way of telling that is if you just exit the sketch, it will show up if it's defining. If it is construction, then once you exit, nothing shows up when you select the sketch. So here's a little tip that you just kind of have to learn. So I want to have or so I have projected this right here. I projected that, and now I obviously have my vertical axis, so I'm going to make a horizontal line there, I'm going to make a horizontal line there, and then I'll connect the two. And then that will be a fully defined sketch without any actual dimensions. So I want to make sure that the horizontal shows up right there. Same with this, horizontal, and I will connect the two. I'm actually going to go one step further, and I might as well just make these semicircles right now. So I'm just going to create two circles in there, because I know this is right on the center point. So I'll click on that guy, I'll click on this guy, right click to exit out of there. These need to be a radius of 10, so you can say constrain radius, sorry, I misspoke, radius of 5. And I can just click on these two, make those equal, dimension. We're once again fully constrained. And now, this might look a little ugly and confusing, but we have multiple contours in here. And something that's really easy about this FreeCAD link branch, I can just pick on this, and I can pad that. Even though there's multiple things going on in there, say if I wanted, to ignore one of those circles, I can hold Control and select multiple. But I just want the one, and then pad automatically pops up. I want that symmetric, and that should be 2 millimeters. And just like that, I have the center rib. And something to be aware of is if you click on the sketch and you click on pad, a lot of times you will just get an error because there's multiple contours, and FreeCAD can't really figure out what you're trying to do. So that's why I always recommend selecting the contour and then pad. And let's verify it is symmetric. Cross that line, it sure is. And now I want to mirror that, so I'll click on just that pad. Mirror automatically pops up, and it looks like it picked the right plane already. But if needed, you can say select reference, pick this plane. So I got that result now, and that looks like that's what that part should look like. It goes up to this lip right there. It looks correct. So I will continue on now to this drain down in the corner here. So it's 22 from this edge, and it's 22 from this edge as well. So I think probably the easiest way is just looking at the top. Just make a rectangle, and I will project here, and just dimension 22 from each of those. And just so our model's a little more robust, I'm actually gonna take this bottom outline sketch. And something that's cool is I can, rather than trying to click on those, I'm just going to make a carbon copy of that whole sketch. And it takes those dimensions. You see they're now orange. That means that they're defined. You see the fx right here? It's a function that's linking back to this original sketch. So that's something that's pretty neat. Now I want a rectangle, and I will put that, constrain it on that line. Same thing here. That's right here. Constrain point onto object. Click dimension. That should be 22. And this should be 22. And now that is fully defined. And now I will click on this, Control Select to get both of those profiles. And we need a pocket now. It's going the wrong direction, so I need to reverse that. and I want 2 dimensions. So you can see this 10 is actually going the opposite way, because we're going up, but when you click 2 dimensions, the second length is the opposite direction. But something that's cool is you can select this to be negative, and it just works like an offset. So let's look at our drawing here. So this should be 6 millimeters from the bottom. So I can type -6. For the other dimension, it's still from this bottom plane. 6 plus 5, which is just 11. So let's type that in. 6 plus 5, and then make sure that this is -6. So there's our preview. We can OK. Now we need to add in those fillets around there, which should be 2.5. And something just to note about FreeCAD, because this is going to be a full round fillet, FreeCAD does not like full round fillets. So I'm going to type in 2.4999 to whatever, however far you want to go. I'll just type in 2.49 because we have a tolerance on this, on the mass, so I'm not worried about it. And sometimes it's a little tough to actually click on the line that you're trying to get to when it's kind of an internal line, an internal edge like that. So I will click on any other face, and that will turn it into wireframe mode. So fill it there. See, if I type in 2.5, recompute failed. However, if I do 2.49, that's pretty much what we want, and it worked just fine. Works like a charm. So it's a bit cheesy, but that's just sometimes what you have to do in FreeCAD. And now one thing that I missed initially is this radius 1 full round. So I could do, basically what we just did and add a 0.99 fillet around these top 2 edges. That is something I could do. I could type in 0.99, and there's our preview. See, once again, if I typed in 1, it's not happy. But actually, I'm going to make something a little better, and I'm going to go way back to our original profile. And I'm going to add in an arc here. I'll make this arc tangent here, now that's fully constrained. And that pipe is not happy now, and that is because the entire sketch is selected. However, if I click Profile and I zoom in here, see, now I can click on just this profile. So it says, basically what this is saying is, inside of this sketch, you want this internal face. And now I can OK that. And there's no errors in here. So that is our final model, I believe. Let's take a quick look. So there are these yellow fillets. So I'll go and add those quickly. So I want this line, here, and once again, tangent propagation is always on by default. I actually don't know if you can turn it off. I'll create those 2mm fillets. And now get my FreeCAD toolbar, select the body, hello! Made a mistake here.
for dinner?
That's a good question.
A piece of bread?
Fillets are usually the first thing to break in a model. So I could remove that, and I could go to our original side profile sketch right here, and I can close out of there. There's an error on this pipe, so it's trying to pick this whole sketch. I can click on profile, and now I'm selecting, and I want just this part with the rounded one, just this one profile. So I'll click on that. Now this adds this internal face. And everything else updates. There's no errors in here. However, something I do see is that our rib in the middle here actually changed. I missed this one of the first times I was going over this. And it appears this sketch right here, sketch 2, that line, you see that line actually moved. FreeCAD isn't perfect about, kind of keeping track of all those things. So sometimes if your design changes, then some things down the road will break. All CAD systems do it. Some handle that better than others. This line, and then there's this button for select associated constraints. I can pick on that, and I look through these ones, and I want a coincidence, so I can go and I can delete that. Now I can move that line and make that coincident there. Close. And our model, this rib is now all one face like that should be. And that's the danger of using projected geometry. So there is definitely a trade-off for that convenience. That's why if I'm modeling something, for myself and not trying to be super fast about it, but rather I want a good, strong model, I will oftentimes use expressions, or this version of FreeCAD has spreadsheets where you can essentially put all of your dimensions and all your variables in essentially just an Excel spreadsheet. So you can make everything linked back to that original spreadsheet, so that if you change your design, everything down the line will update accordingly. But you can look at other tutorials for that one. So anyways, for now, I think for this model I probably would have stuck to just adding a fillet, because we are just trying to make a model quickly, and that's probably easier than trying to deal with any issues down the line. But it's a good learning opportunity, so that's why I kept it in the video. So I think that's all my model, except for I know there's some fillets here that I forgot about. So I'll go in and I'll select these. Click on fillet. I know that needs to be 2 millimeters. I'll OK there. And now I can open up my FreeCAD info toolbar, and I can pick on this body. Click on this body, and now it's going to say as the volume, and this is in meters cubed, which is what we want because our density is kilograms per meter cubed. So I will go ahead and select this, Control C to copy. I will open up a calculator, Control V, paste, times 2700 kilograms per meter cubed. So here's our answer. This is in kilograms. We actually need meters, so we can just, convert it to grams by multiplying it by 1000 and 101.2.